Welcome to another video from Optatube. Today, we're going to take a fascinating trip around the world to look at something we all depend on every single second: electricity. We're going to explore how three very different countries, the US, Australia, and Japan, have designed their power markets. And let me tell you, it's a puzzle with huge implications for our wallets and, of course, for the planet. So let's get right into it.
So here's our travel itinerary for today. First, we'll get our heads around why these market puzzles even exist. Then, we'll make three major stops to analyze the unique systems in the US, Australia, and Japan. And finally, we'll bring it all home by comparing them side by side. All right, let's start with the big central idea. When it comes to electricity, there is absolutely no one-size-fits-all solution. You have to think of every country's power grid like a completely unique puzzle, pieced together based on its own specific history, geography, and resources.
So, what exactly is an electricity market design? Well, think of it as the official rulebook that decides how power is bought and sold in a region. This isn't just some boring document, though. This rulebook is shaped by everything from a country's mountains and coastlines to its political goals. It's really the hidden engine that determines the price you pay for electricity and, critically, the future of green energy.
Okay, our first stop takes us to the United States, a true trailblazer in creating these huge, competitive electricity markets. Let's see how they actually put these design principles into practice.
The US system, at its core, is all about creating a level playing field. It's managed by these independent operators called RTOs, and you can basically think of them as the air traffic controllers for the grid, making sure everything runs smoothly. Power's traded in two main ways. There's a day-ahead market for planning out tomorrow's needs, and then there's a real-time market for making those little last-minute adjustments. This two-part structure is super flexible, and it lets them integrate new tech like California's massive battery systems, and even put a price on carbon. So the key takeaway from the US model is this: having a flexible, transparent market is an incredibly powerful way to manage a really complex grid. It's this design that makes it possible to seamlessly bring more and more renewable energy online without, the whole system falling apart.
Next up, we're heading down under to Australia. Now, if the US market is all about structure and planning, Australia's National Electricity Market, or NEM as they call it, is all about one thing: speed.
Australia's market is built for life in the fast lane. Seriously, it connects 5 absolutely huge regions and settles energy prices every 5 minutes. That's the fastest in the entire world. This incredible speed is crucial for handling the massive amount of solar power flooding their grid. This creates the famous duck curve, where you see the sharp drop in prices in the middle of the day when the sun is blazing, followed by a super steep ramp up in the evening. This speed helps manage all that solar for sure, but man, it also creates some serious price volatility.
So the lesson from Australia is pretty clear. Speed is a really powerful tool for integrating renewables, but it also shines a massive spotlight on the challenge of intermittency. That simple fact that solar and wind power just aren't available 24/7. It's a high-speed, high-stakes balancing act day in and day out.
For our final case study, we land in Japan. And this market, it offers a completely different story. It's a story of a country that's right in the middle of this massive shift from a century of regional monopolies toward a more open, competitive market.
Japan's market, the JEPX, is still really in its early days. It's heavily reliant on traditional power sources, things like thermal plants and hydro. Now, the push for renewables is definitely there, but it's getting held back by some very real-world challenges. Japan is a mountainous country with very little open land, and its power grid is kind of fragmented into these regional islands with pretty weak connections between them. And this is exactly why Japan's story is so important. It's a real-world, textbook example of just how incredibly hard it is to build a competitive market from the ground up, especially when you're on an island grid and you can't easily trade power with your neighbors. You just can't ignore the power of legacy systems and geography. After looking at these three completely different markets, a really clear universal truth starts to emerge. When you add more and more renewables to the grid, wind, solar, you name it, the average price of electricity tends to fall. But, and this is a huge but, there's a trade-off. It also cranks up the volatility, leading to more dramatic and sometimes extreme price swings. This single dynamic is the central puzzle that pretty much every country in the world is trying to solve right now. And if you're interested in really digging into the energy market, power system modeling, and getting updates and insights on the global energy transition, you should definitely follow the Optatube channel.
So, keeping that fundamental trade-off in mind, more renewables means more volatility. What's the big lesson when we put all three of these markets side by side and really compare them?
All right, let's pull up the final scorecard. This is where we bring it all together and see how these different design choices actually play out when you stack them up against each other.
Okay, this table really lays it all out there. Just look at how the design focus of each market directly impacts its price volatility. The US, with its focus on structured competition, has high volatility. Makes sense. Then you have Australia, which went all in on speed and deregulation, and they experience very high volatility. And then there's Japan, which is still in the middle of this big transition, and for now, its volatility is more moderate. It's a perfect illustration of how every single design choice has a direct and predictable consequence for the market.
So, after our whole global tour, what's the ultimate lesson? It's that there is no single best electricity market. The real goal, the true challenge, is a delicate balancing act between three competing priorities: efficiency, reliability, and decarbonization. And that is the great energy puzzle that every country on Earth is trying to solve. Thanks for watching.